Hey everyone, my name is Parush, and in this new episode of the Long Live Cinema Show, I got the chance to speak with Sumit Purohit, who is a screenwriter and also have extensive experience in editing trailers and other fiction formats. He wrote the screenplay and dialogues for shows like Scam 1992, Aranyak, and Inside Edge. He also directed a short film called Vakil Babu starring Abhishek Banerjee. He has edited multiple trailers and series episodes, which also includes Scam 1992. In this episode, Sumit shares his screenwriting and editing experiences by explaining the writing process of a series. How do you form a screenplay for a story that spans through multiple episodes? What is a beat sheet? What is the importance of a publicist, especially for writers? And how, as a writer, can you understand and convey what a character feels? We have covered many more such topics, so you can consider this entire episode to be something that resembles a screenwriting masterclass. I hope you like this conversation as much as I did. And in case you like what you see or hear, please give this video a like and also subscribe to Long Live Cinema for many more such episodes and video essays. So, without any further delay, sit back, relax, and let's start the show. I know you have already mentioned this, that it was like a 2 year, you sent it out 2 years ago, but I was very excited to see that Zack Snyder answered your question in his
Right,
video
right.
that you
Yeah,
posted on Twitter. I just wanted to ask you, do you like him as a storyteller with his storytelling choices? Are you a fan?
I wouldn't say I'm a fan, but I think for me, filmmaking is little more than just the storytelling. Even though I'm a screenwriter, and I keep repeating this also. Uh, it's at the end of the day, it's the visual medium. It can exist without sound, without music. It can exist without actors, with actors. It can exist in an animation form. It can exist in so much. It's visuals,
Yeah.
and so for me, as a filmmaker also, or as an audience also, uh, I'm always interested in what the visual is trying to tell me, what is the craft behind that rather than what the story is. Because if I'm really interested in a story, I would rather read it. So what Jack Snyder does with his, I think, visuals, that is very exciting for me to watch. So sometimes beyond, I can experience a film which goes beyond the story. Like, I think probably that's the most boring part for me. Um, just watching a story unfold. Unless there's a craft, and by craft I do not mean that uh, CGI or how your Jimmy Jip moves, or what the scale of the shot is. But I think first time I really got into interested in filmmaking, also understanding how simple the filmmaking can be. That is through Iranian cinema, and that's craft. That there's some kind of craft in telling that story. Uh, so that is what excites me rather than the story itself. And therefore, if you're asking about Jack Snyder, in a way, I always get excited when his film is coming because I know there will be some kind of a visual language to it.
Yes, absolutely. I cannot discuss about Rebel Moon because unfortunately I did not get a chance. But
Yeah, I've
yes,
also not seen it. But
yeah, but I completely agree with you when it comes to his previous filmography that I've seen, that he is definitely one of the best visual storytellers out there.
yeah.
Uh, I wanted to know if like how does it feel for you to be completely in control of your craft when you are both the writer and director of a story, as compared to when you write something that is being directed by someone else? How does the vision that you imagine gets fulfilled?
So, like I said, even though and I've said this multiple times, I don't think filmmaking is writer's medium. If I thought I was a writer, if I had that kind of a command over the language, I would rather write a book because I think that is the writer's medium. I'm a screenplay writer, and what I am doing is creating this blueprint for somebody, to come and direct it. There's this very famous quote that screenplay is not work of art. It's an invitation for others to collaborate on a work of art. Uh, so that is what the screenplay is for me. So I do not, when I'm writing the screenplay, I do not want that kind of absolute control. I know that somebody is going to come and, going to have certain kind of a vision to it. The actor is going to come, they are going to bring something to it. The editor is going to come and he's going to rewrite it at times. Uh, so I do not fall in love with, what I've written. Uh, but I'm very clear that it has to be written certain way. There has to be some kind of formatting to it. It's a blueprint. It is the first thing which not only your director and actors would read, but also your production team. So your EP would come and he will read the screenplay and he would say, okay, this is the budget for the screenplay. Uh, and when I'm saying blueprint and formatting, I'm talking about that, I want to mention my location very clearly. If I'm describing the house, I would rather describe it, let's say it's Sumit's house, but if a scene is happening in a bedroom, then I would say bedroom, Sumit's house, living room, Sumit's house, so that the moment the EP comes, it says, okay, it looks like a 3 BHK or it looks like a 1 BHK. And that is helping you budget it. Also, your characters would behave in certain way in certain locations. So therefore, a location automatically becomes a character. Like in Scam, we ended up writing a scene in a Wankhede stadium where Harshad and his brother are watching a cricket match. And then the whole conversation, even though it's not about the match directly, it's about what is happening in their life. The match becomes the metaphor. But then we were told, for a small scene like this, you cannot go shoot at Wankhede or any cricket stadium. So I said, okay, where are you going to shoot it? They said, we are going to shoot it in a cafe. So now the whole thing becomes about them sitting in a cafe, and it's actually, it's I think office or cafe, and then the context changes. So the location becomes very important. Uh, so when I'm saying the format, it has to look certain way. It has to be formatted very well. Probably I should know my transitions little bit. I should know, I wouldn't write a scene like multiple, montage, multiple locations. I would rather describe those locations and say, okay, this montage has probably 5 shots and 6 shots. And then directors can come and, improvise, and actors can come and improvise. Uh, but I think it's the blueprint, and like it's the foundation. Now you can create, different kind of buildings, and you can paint it certain way. You can, the interior design could be certain way, and those things can change. But it's the foundation. It has to be strong. It has to be very clear. Okay, what are we going for? So you cannot build a multiple story building on a foundation which is probably for a row house. So therefore, I even tell producers that you have to be very transparent with me, that telling me what the budget of this project is, because that is how I will visualize it. So no, I do not want that absolute control on the, you know on the writing. I would definitely not compromise on the soul of the story or whatever we are trying to say. I think that is important. But other than, I'm open to feedback. A lot of people say writers are not open to feedbacks and they do not take feedbacks very well. Even though at that moment I would reject it, and I would try to defend it. But it's my work, and if you've given me a great suggestion, I will go back and think about it. And unless it's like I said, it's not compromising on the soul of the story.
That's true. That's true. And to corroborate what you just mentioned, that Alfred Hitchcock himself said that if it's on paper, it's like you just mentioned the word blueprint. So if
Yeah,
the blueprint is out there in black and white,
yeah,
you are everything is easy for you. You are
yeah.
like the storytelling becomes very simple because you have written each and everything.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, from the lens of an audience member, why do you think that Scam 1992 became a timeless piece of storytelling?
See, again, that's a difficult question to answer, because what happens when you are creating something, and I was writing it and then I was editing it, and like I think it started in January 2018. It came out in October 2020. Uh, so you're too close to it. So when you're watching it, what happens with when you watch your own work, you're watching it in layers. In the sense, you're watching a scene and you're seeing the sound design, you're watching the
Right.
music. So you never get that experience. You're always looking for, oh, is there something wrong? Is that cut right? I could have cut it, like this, and it's very difficult to really enjoy it, or to experience it like an audience would, because you have already moved on. You're
Right.
already, what is going to happen. You're already probably thinking about second episode while watching first. uh, So it's a very difficult question to answer that why it worked for the audience. I can just guess. Also because we didn't think as creators of it or writers of it that we thought it's a decent show, but we thought that it doesn't have a large reach. One, it was very long. The episodes were very long, and you are usually told that it has to be the 40-45 minute is a good length. But I think most episodes in Scam are close to 1 hour, other than the sixth episode, which is 40 minutes. Um, so it was very long. It was a financial thriller. It doesn't really have your cliffhangers. It doesn't have action. It's set in a period. I don't know because a lot of young audience saw it, so we thought a lot of people will not even connect to it. Uh, so we thought it's a decent show. People will watch it, and I think we'll get reviews should be fine. But we never thought that has it will have this kind of a reach. But I think what worked for it now when I look back that probably even as creators we were not thinking that audience are smart enough. They want smart things. They want to see
Right.
these new worlds. This is a new world, and it's an underdog story. I it's about a man going against the system. It's about a journalist standing for what she believes in. So uh, and I think then the performance and music and everything connected to the audience. But I think it's what it taught me that you need to respect your audience. They would surprise you the moment you give them something intelligent. Like one of the earliest brief Hansel gave us was that let's not dumb it down. Let's not make these brokers talk like they're talking to audience. It's okay if audience do not understand it. Uh, because they need to believe in these people. They need to believe these are brokers. So their language has to be certain way. Uh, so what also I think worked for it because we didn't explain a lot of things. It people started discussing about it. There were these suddenly these, there were YouTubers talking about it. They were trying to explain things to audience. They were trying to tell you, oh, this character is probably in real life. His name is this, and probably people were trying to decode it. Uh, what if which used to happen, which we used to do when if a lot of HBO shows which were weekly, people will go on Reddit and keep discussing about and come up with these theories, and so because you're not explaining it, the moment you explain everything, you spoon feed the audience, they enjoy it, but it's over. They know everything.
Right.
But if it's unexplained, then I think the show lives little longer. I think that also happened. A lot of people started discussing about it. I think
Right.
that's where I think it became in a way the part of the pop culture.
Right. And since you just mentioned about the performances of the actors, which definitely played a pivotal role in, telling the story and conveying the story emotionally to the audience. So, how much does casting affect writing dialogues in terms of tonality, or does it not? And I'm asking this specifically also because Pratik Gandhi was, highly appreciated for his
Yeah.
performance.
So I think we didn't know see one. I think in this case we were writing in a way it's a biopic, right? These characters are real, so we had real references. We had met a lot of brokers and people from that time who were in these rooms and who were in these back rooms and people who knew these people. So a lot of that the tone of the dialogue came from them. It's not like we were trying to write it for actors. But when Karan came to write the dialogues, Karan Vyas,
Yeah.
he had collaborated with Pratik before. So he knew that Pratik would be able to pull certain kind of dialogues. But I think that was not the attempt that we were writing it for certain actors. We were writing it for characters. But what happens, what an actor does sometimes is like there is this character of a governor, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Which on paper is just an incidental character. He's one of he speaks in very plain English Hindi. You know, he talks very technical. He's not very dramatic. He's there because he has to be there.
Right.
It's not like we as writers we are paying a lot of attention to it. Uh, But when Anand Madhavan came and he did that character, he brought certain kind of something to it that it became one of my favorite characters. So on paper, it was a very simple character, but he brought something to it, and I think that is where it became really exciting. So I think that is what an actor can do, you know. Or even like some of those lines, like I thought these lines would not work, but Pratik made them work, because they were very what we call very mainstream Bollywood.
Right.
Although they were coming from a lot of research, because that is how these lot of these brokers used to talk. Uh, but you do not know whether this will work on screen or not. Like a line like मैं जेब में lighter लेकर चलता हूँ, and he's actually saying it to in the series, he's saying it to in a Doordarshan interview, and I thought this is not going to work. So a lot of time, but the way like Pratik did it, like he can I think his version of Harshad Mehta can do that.
Right.
So I
And
think
then there is
so.
also the dialogue of तुम्हें किसी पे पैसा लगाना है तो इंडिया पे पैसा लगाओ. That has also
uh,
become quite iconic.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I think that is actually coming from actual Harshad Mehta's interview.
Okay.
Like I said, they used to talk like this.
Hmm.
So he was giving this interview, and that is, I think he said it in English, but it was similar line. So a lot of these
Right.
lines actually came from meeting these people. A lot of these examples and metaphors came from these people.
Right. Great, awesome. To dive a little deeper into this, I would love to know that how do you approach writing a series that spans across different episodes? If you can share a breakdown of how do you divide your screenplay and how do you plan your writing based on, in terms of how the narrative will progress.
So I think initially what happened was, I think because it was happening over multiple years. I think our first approach was, oh, can we do it like a non-linear thing? It would be very exciting to do it in a non-linear fashion, where we started with that his fall and his rise and fall are like intracut. So it starts with, I think the first episode starts with this SBI looking for this some man in this uh, temple town, and you because you think it's a series about Harshad Mehta, you think they're looking for Harshad Mehta, but they're looking for this random SBI guy called Sitaraman, and then they bring him back, and that was your original cold open. And say कि वो अच्छा वो किसके पास है, BR किसके पास है. That scene is still there, but it's in fifth episode, and
Yeah,
then he says Harshad Mehta, and that is what your cold open was, and then it goes into
right,
his past, and then it comes back. So it's like you're seeing his rise and fall, and we wrote 5 episodes like that. Uh, but then Hansel said that what is happening is because we do not know who Harshad Mehta is and where is he coming from. He is not interested in seeing his fall because he doesn't know where he's coming from.
correct.
So then we made it linear, other than your cold open, where Bellari comes and tells that small scene with Sucheta. But then it's almost, I think, then it's linear. Uh, so I think sometimes what happens is you start discovering the structure as you are writing it. I think, and with Scam, it was quite organic. It was not like there was no huge Bible. Like I said, our initial episodic breakdown or whatever little beat sheets we had were non-linear. So I even created a structure like a non-linear structure. And, this is happening, and this year this is happening. Uh, but then we slowly, when we started writing, we wrote 5 episodes. Then we went back and started writing it linearly. Uh, so, uh, so we had some basic about idea about where these episodes will end, but I think those ends were the logical ends because you're following life of a man. So we said, okay, this looks like a chapter. This looks like a chapter. So I think these ends were very organic. If you go back and look at it, if one chapter gets over in his life and then you move to another chapter and another chapter. Uh, but within the episode, then we'll find, and we'll try to find a structure. Like because sometimes it will move like in multiple years. The episode would happen in multiple years, and but
Right.
in sixth episode, it's just one day. It's not even 24 hours. So then we are treating that episode completely different. And that is, I think, what long form allows you. A lot of people say कि नहीं वो every episode has to be similar, but I think long form allows you to experiment with that. Like the episode 10, I think it's from 2000, I think 93 to 2000 or 2001. So it's covering like 8 years of his life. So now what we did was how we edited it also. Like every year you see one scene from his life because nothing much is happening in his life. So we completely slowed it down, and so every year you see Bombay changing. There is a sequence where
Hmm.
the super becomes from Bombay to Mumbai.
Right.
So then it was structured like that. How do we even cover these many years of his life? Because nothing exciting is happening in his life. So then that was the reason that episode we slowed down that episode completely. Or episode 6, like I'm saying, it plays like a thriller because there's certain kind of like if that news doesn't come out next morning, then it's not a news. So then you have a deadline, and so it almost becomes like a thriller. So I think eventually what happens is I think the story will start telling you the structure. If you're looking at it, so I'm saying right now what happens is like everyone has become so strict with these things. Now, oh, we need a Bible and we have to follow the Bible. And what has happened is what we forget is that the Americans and in West they have done this for multiple years. This season format they have done it for years. They're trained to do it. They're trained to do it with multiple directors. They know what a writer's room is, and how to run it, and what a showrunner is, what a creator is. They've done it for years. I
Right.
think we started doing it in I think I actually started with Inside Edge, which was the another show I wrote.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was I think TVF has done something at smaller scale, but at that scale it was happening for first time. So we were trying to discover, okay, how do we even do this? How do we collaborate? Who writes what? Because there were five writers on Inside Edge. Although everyone has worked with everyone, so it was a little easier. But we were discovering it, and like we are still discovering it. Like we started in 2017. It has not even like we have not done it for 10, not even for 10 years. So we used to do. I think our generation either we have written films or either we have written these TV, which is 4 episodes a week,
Right.
and suddenly then there is this new format which is season based. And because I met a lot
Hmm.
of people, and even for audience, like I met a lot of people post Inside Edge, and they're asking, "Acha, 11th episode kab aa raha?" I said, no, there's no 11th episode. It's going to be next season. So I'm saying so your audience are also not trained for it. So why are we worried about these? This is how the Bible is done, and you know, let's stick to that Bible. Let's solve, let's fix the episode 1 and then move to 2. Like Hansel used to say, okay, if we are not able to crack something in episode 1, let's move on. Probably we'll find some answers later, and we'll come back and we'll solve this because it's one story. But what happens is when you get so strict, um, you get stuck into all these formats, and you are not ready to improvise. It's no more enjoyable then because it's you're working in a corporate office then where there are rules, these strict rules. But with Scam, it was very organic. Like so, we were also doing a lot of research while we were writing because uh, this book is very well researched book, but it is from it's like collection of these articles, a lot of facts and a lot of details, and Arshad Mehta is in few chapters, but the scam itself is very big. And yeah, so what happens when you're writing something? It's not just about the numbers and the fact; it's also about how people speak and what drama was happening. And then Sucheta and Debashi, they started connecting us to these people who were involved in the scam or who were around when the scam was happening, and so that we can understand those language. And then we started meeting these people. Everyone will have a story. अरे वो हर्षद भाई एक शादी में आए तो ऐसा हुआ. So now said, "अरे, this is an interesting scene." So if you see, then there's a scene where he comes in the wedding, and so that is a scene coming from somebody narrating us. So we are also improvising that. Okay, now this is an interesting scene. Can we incorporate it? Or that scene which became very famous where he lifts it. That it's on the trailer also where he lifts his hand and shows five. So we were with someone. He said, "अरे वहाँ मुहूर्त होता है तो हर्षद भाई आए तो हर्षद भाई balcony में आए तो ऐसा हुआ उन्होंने हाथ उठाया ये क्या." I said, "This is a great visual. Let's incorporate it." So a lot of time I'm saying That is, I think, you should be able to improvise and let the story evolve organically rather than, being like, okay, let's do the Bible. Maybe we'll be able to do it post 10 years when everyone, the executive, we, audience, everyone is trained to do that. Otherwise, we need to find our own way to write these stories. And I think that is what happened with Scam, that which also spoiled us because now, we crave for that kind of freedom, which you will not get always in a studio culture. But I
Right.
think that is what I think Applause, Sony Live, and Ansel allowed us to do.
Yeah, we are going to touch what you just mentioned by the end of this podcast. But while you were explaining while you were explaining this, you mentioned something called a beat sheet. So can you just
Yeah.
quickly define what is a beat sheet?
So, again, this, what happens. Some people will call it plot outline. A lot of people will call it with different names. But for me, a beat sheet is basically, it's like saying, okay, if there are 15 important scenes or 12 important scenes in a episode, uh, what are those scenes in one line? What are those important beats? So now, between two beats, there could be a smaller scene. But what are these small, important beats happening in these episodes? Or in a film, a film beat sheet will be probably longer. So like Saurabh and I decided that for every episode, we need 12 to 15 beats. Now that doesn't mean that if it has 12 to 15 beats, all episode will be of same length. They might be, because you will have to fill in the blanks,
Right.
but these will be like, we thought, okay, if we can find, so that is what we created, that if we can find these 12 to 15 beats in every episode, then, we'll find the structure. Now, what happens is, why it was so easy for us to move things here and there, because, yeah, like I said, we wrote non-linear, but those beats were already there. Those scenes, like the SBI guy is looking for Sita Raman, is already written. Now I have to just edit it, take it to episode 5. I have to just, reshuffle things. So those, I think that would be a beat sheet for me. Now, a lot of times people will call it by different names.
Sure, sure. That's all right. Uh, what was the most complex or the most challenging portion of your script when it comes to curating the character of Harshad Mehta?
I think, and this, so yeah, this has been, people still keep debating it. I think, so what we see, we were very clear that, he is not a hero. In my mind, he is a criminal, right? He's done something. He's done. Therefore, it's called scam. So he has done a scam. Uh, Now, but the problem with a character like Harshad Mehta is he's an underdog to begin with. You know, so, and he's going against the system. Now, in a country like India, the moment somebody goes against the system, he's a hero. He's, if you look at, and because we think that in India the system is which is not allowing you to, progress in life, or achieve, doing business is not very easy in India because how the system is. Uh, so anybody who finds these flaws with system, or goes against the system, is hero in India. If you see a lot of angry young man films from 70s, it's about
Yeah.
this man going against the system. He dies or whatever. But there's a reason why people used to call Harshad Mehta Amitabh Bachchan. It's not something as writers we have invented. He was called Amitabh Bachchan of share market, and that is coming from these 70s ka angry young man, because he comes from nothing. The system is making things difficult for him or her, and they go against it, and they achieve something in life. So we knew that there is going to be certain kind of a sympathy towards this character. So now, how we need to create characters around him who keep reminding him that what you are doing is not right, even though you try to justify it in multiple ways. uh, you cannot, because this is a crime, and therefore
Yeah.
that scene, which is a completely fictional scene in a way, where Sucheta goes and meets Harshad in that, this one-to-one scene between them, where she reminds him that, you have no vision. Like, if the day I find the source of your money, आप एक किनारे किरा वो जनरल स्टोर भी नहीं चला सकते. So you do not have any vision. And when you talk about this vision about the country and everything, ये ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, everything you're doing for yourself. So I think this was difficult, that how do you keep creating these characters? Therefore there's this friend who commits suicide, you know, because the scam in reality affected a lot of people. But what happens is, even after doing that, like I think some there are things you as writers and filmmakers you cannot control. That is also because how we look at journalism today. That अरे ये journalists तो मतलब they are all paid, and they are all anybody can buy them, and ये
Yeah,
सब जो articles है. But for us, Devashish and Sucheta were the heroes, and in their words also, like Harshad Mehta was a criminal, but what happened with him was sad, because in the end, nobody wanted to solve anything. Nobody wanted to if they wanted, they could have got the money back. But it became about egos. It became about protecting a lot of other people and politicians and bureaucrats, and so it became something else. So even like even though he was a criminal, I mean, there has to be a certain way that you punish a criminal. I think that didn't happen. So I think also what happened, I think the way he died, there is certain kind of sympathy towards him, but that doesn't change the fact that he did a scam. Uh, so I think that was little difficult. Also, I think because his life is not very interesting. Like if you look a film like Wolf of Wall Street, there's so much happening. But every time we met some Harshad's friend, they बेचारे वो तो शराब नहीं पीता था, कुछ नहीं करता था, जो किसी चीज का शौक ही नहीं था. So now that's
yeah,
a very boring character to create on screen. But then we realize that probably, you know, then the only driving force he has is this, you know, this power, this power
yeah,
he's craving for, and
yeah,
also this idea of fitting in, because he came from outside, and every time somebody told him you cannot do this, he would say I will do that, and that is also the reason why I think the character connects to the audience, because this idea of him trying to fit. So I think that is how also we got to understand who he was. Why would you not return that money when you have this money?
yeah,
Why would you keep stretching it? Because you want that power. You are saying कि मुझे जरूरत ही नहीं है, सब लोग मैं the prime minister is with me, the political parties are with me, and I will solve it. I need not do this, because he
yeah,
wants to feel like when he's told that you cannot do, you shouldn't come to the money market, and he said I will now, even though his business is doing fine. So this idea of fitting in, that he's the outsider, and a lot of us, like a lot of people, feel like that they are outsiders and they want to fit in. So I think that also gave us little bit about his character, that who he was, and so that is how I think that was a little challenging, but I think in the process we discovered him.
right. Also, I believe since we were talking about this just a couple of minutes ago, I think this is, according to me, one of the main reasons why the series was loved so much. The idea of being an outsider and just entering
Yeah,
into a system like they
yeah,
like it is called, and just being a
yeah,
part of it,
yeah.
right? You have a new release coming up, and I just wanted to ask that what is something that you focused on the most when it comes to narrating the story of Shrikant?
So again, I think when Tushar told me about this story, so I said, yeah, the only way we can do this is if this is a story about a businessman who happens to be blind. It's not about this blind person, and I do not want to treat it like that. And when you see the film, you will see that some of the scenes are completely reversed. Also, I think if you meet a real Srikanth, he is very funny and he's very smart, and he has these very smart one-liners. And a lot of time I'm writing a dramatic scene, I am telling him, अच्छा ऐसा होगा, and then he would guess, अच्छा फिर वो ऐसा कहेगा. So we thought of, and he said, अरे सबके लाइफ में कोई, मैं डार्क साइड भी जाऊंगा, मेरी लाइफ में मैं कुछ गलत भी करूंगा, and you should show that. So we never really treated it like कि अच्छा अच्छा एक आदमी अंधा है, अब उसकी लाइफ में क्या डिफरेंट. Obviously that's the backdrop, But I
Yeah,
think that was not the approach. I think, and the trailer kind of hints all, give you a little hint key. There it's almost like there is certain kind of humor in it.
yeah,
Uh, but there are emotional moments because that again because we've created a system like that where you know where I think we hardly care about people who are differently able. So I think this is again this is the kind of system we have created. But the approach was, I think, we were very clear. We it's the story of a businessman. It's again a underdog story where that person happens to be blind,
hmm,
but he will fall in love, and like his love story is real. It's not something you've created.
right,
It's like, he would want to do certain things. He has aspirations, and then he happens to be blind, and then then what happens? Uh,
right.
so I think that was the approach towards writing Srikanth.
Yeah. So you are, please correct me if I'm wrong. What I can understand is you are not treating his condition as an obstacle. You are actually treating it as a part of his life, which just goes on with him.
Yeah,
It just
it's so
flows with his life.
yeah, it becomes an obstacle because we have created the world like that.
Yeah.
So I don't want to
True.
spoil the film for you, but when you will see his point of view. It is a struggle because the world is like that,
Right.
and a lot of time we find ourselves struggling because the world has been created certain way.
True.
Like like if you are a VIP, you will get a lot of access which a normal person wouldn't. Now, is that a struggle, or is that an obstacle, or the world has been created like that? Can I complain about it? Can I describe it as a struggle? I do not know. So, like so one approach I have towards writing is that I do not want to sit and judge my characters. I want to observe them. Uh, let if it's a fictional story, let the plot decide what they will say, what they will do. Yeah, as a writer, I do not want to judge whether what they are doing is right or wrong, or whether it's a struggle, or you know I do not want to do that. This is how the story is. It's a lot of these beats in Srikanth are real, and then you dramatize them for certain effect, for certain humor and emotion, but again those beats are real.
Right, absolutely. And I think this is a great segue for what I wanted to understand from you next, is that how do you, as a writer, understand and convey what a character is feeling by, with the help of your words? How do you translate that internal conflict or that emotional experience into words?
Again, I don't think there's one answer to it. It will depend on who the character is, what his world is, what that scene is. Uh, so lot of, like I said, I would like to do it visually, and I would like to write silences, and that is what we try. That can you write a silence, and can that silence convey that? Or when I mean silence, I'm saying you can put a character in middle of a traffic, and convey something. By silence, I mean without the dialogues. Or if you're writing a dialogue, then you know can you find a way where it doesn't look like uh, that this dialogue is being spoken to audience? Uh, or I forgot, I was seeing this reel. Uh, there's some acting coach who was talking about what good acting is, and I think I will apply to that to writing also. You're saying that when you are a situation where you want to cry, I think what you're trying to do is not cry in real life, right? It's not like you want to cry. You don't want to cry. You end up crying. You know, you're trying to hide it, and that's what the good actor would do. The moment he starts crying in a scene, it becomes melodramatic. Or the crying has to be some kind of an outburst. You're controlling, and then it happens. So I think in writing also, I think it's about controlling that emotion. that you keep controlling. Okay, I don't want to make it very obvious. I do not want to make it very obvious, and then it happens. Uh, like the story will tell you, the character's journey would tell you how do you convey uh, what's in their head. So a lot of time you use music and song, and I can give you one example is that Harsha's death that has been written in certain way in this script. It has a little bit of dialogues and a little bit of crying, in this script. But again, we knew. I think he died on, I think, 31st December or first. I think it's New Year, right? It's 30th or 31st. Uh, so now that immediately that visual was like, okay, he when they're taking him in the ambulance, he's seeing these fireworks. So that has been written in the script. So sometimes also what I like to do, and I think is can I create a contrasting visual to convey what the character is going through? Create a contrasting music sometimes. Uh, so I think so. Sometimes you do that, like you seeing this celebration and you seeing this man dying, and you seeing that light on his face, uh, and then what happened was, because I was also editing it, I ended up using that Kabir Cafe song there because I needed some kind of music, and we were using a Kabir Cafe song anyway in I think in episode third. So I had their songs. I said, "Are these lyrics are looking really nice, and let's use it." And then Ansel really liked it, and he said, "Let's go with this." uh, because I thought, this is a reference song, and there will be some music and there will be some sound design. And then when he heard the song, he said, you know, I don't want any crying, I do not want anything. And if you go back to see, there is no sound design to that particular. It's just a song playing, uh, because the song in a way tells you what the series is, and it I was just using it, and then I started. So sometimes this magic also happens, like you just, okay, this music sounds fine and this lyrics, but then when I heard the whole song, I said, okay, this is what we are trying to tell through the series. And so then Ansel heard it for a couple of days. He was a little unsure, and then he said, no, 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 let's use this, let's use this. So I think so. These are I think that tells you, it's not just about the characters. Also, it's also the emotion of the scene. It tells you lot. So I think when I'm writing, so when you're writing, like I said, because you're writing a screenplay and not a book, you can depend on these things. You can depend on how the sound design can be. Can I have some rain in the background or sunshine? Can that reflect what actor is going through? Or it's how the transition happens. How do you cut a scene? I think that becomes very important because you know it, if I cut certain visual to certain other visual from a close up to a certain thing, you immediately you know what your character is going through. It can easily convey a lot of things. And that is one thing which we keep forgetting. The film editing, like this idea of connecting two visuals and creating an emotion is the technique which only exists in filmmaking. You cannot do that in theater. You cannot do that in book. You cannot do it in a painting. Uh, but you can do that in film, and that is the only thing which is unique to filmmaking. The music can happen, just a video can exist, or like a visual can exist in a painting. A story can be told in a theater, but this idea of two images coming together, and when you cut them or overlap them, and, or split the screen, uh, this can only happen in filmmaking, and I think that is one way of conveying the emotion. Or a lot of time, like I'm saying, this creating this contrast. If you remember that when this Valerie comes in first scene, you know, Sucheta is not even paying attention to him. She's talking something else, but this guy has some information, and so within the scene you are creating this contrast because it's in the at the end of the day, it's not about what character is feeling. You can make the character. It has to be conveyed to the audience. They have to feel what the character is feeling. Like I said, sometimes you create this contrast, create this frustration that they want. अरे ये बोल क्यों नहीं रहा बोल क्यों नहीं रहा If you see it's such a long मतलब वो he comes he bumps into RK Lakshman then he bumps into and he has some information as an audience and you're just delaying it because now as an audience you want अरे बताओ बताओ but now as a writer or as a director I'm saying कि नहीं so I'm saying you in a way you are then creating this contrast where audience are feeling something. I think that is one way sometimes you give the audience the information and not the characters. So there are multiple ways I'm saying you use all these tools.
Yes, absolutely. Uh, I couldn't agree anymore because I strongly feel that yes, and of course, so many people from India and outside India have mentioned this. Like I, the most recent example that I remember is of Frances McDormand, who said that I usually work with people who are very good editors. Yes, you are a great director, sure, you are a great writer, but ultimately it is the editing that will, compile the film. You are arranging everything in a certain way,
Yeah,
like you just
yeah,
mentioned, in order to make someone feel
yeah,
a certain emotion. And that can be anything. And editing is a culmination, like you just said,
yeah,
editing
yeah.
allows you to bring together all these elements of audio
Right.
and visual, and then you have the sound design and everything.
Yeah,
So, like, I've heard this that as a director, one should also be aware of how the film is going to be edited.
right.
How
Yeah,
is the or going to like how the footage will be managed on the edit table.
right,
You have to capture the footage accordingly.
right.
So does that thought of how it is going to be edited also comes to you as a writer कि जो मैं लिख रहा हूँ वो actually edit table पे ऐसा जाएगा because वो shoot ऐसा होगा. So does that thought also strike you?
So I cannot talk about other writers,
Yeah, yeah.
but I have been always like I think the first technique in filmmaking that I learned was editing because so I was from fine art. A lot of my friends used to go and learn Photoshop and everything. So I said, okay, I will also go because I was interested in filmmaking. So I had a camera. I used to shoot everything, but I didn't know about editing. And uh, so that was the first thing I started learning. Although I think all the teachers there were usually teaching you graphics, like whether Photoshop or Corel Draw, but somebody could tell me कि ऐसे cut होता है. This is how you use Premiere. So that is where I started doing these mashups because there was no footage. So I used to take some old song and cut it on like the meaning would change then. I would take a song. I remember I think first thing I did was there was some song. This Amir Khan song in Gulam where he's on the bike. Uh, so ended up cutting it with Mere Sapno Ki Rani because it's similar kind of a visual with Rajesh Khanna in a jeep. So that is how I started learning editing. It was the first thing. In a way, like my understanding of screenplay came much later. I was editing before that. I was writing for theater, but theater writing is completely different than how you write a film screenplay. So for me, that is really helpful. To understand uh, editing and then writing. That also means like a lot of people think, अच्छा आप तो फिर edit कर ही देते होंगे. That also teaches you that you need to give director a little bit, the editor a little bit to so that they can play with that footage and improvise on set. So that doesn't mean that you know अच्छा मैं बिल्कुल आपको transition लिख कर दे दूंगा. So I am not like I think me or everyone I've collaborated with none of us we do not like to write camera angles or cut kar aisa exactly transition hoga. I think that, we do not do that as writers. Unless like it's really important and that can only be conveyed through a camera movement, then probably in a bracket we'll say it can be done like this, but again it's director's call, how he or she wants to do it. So I think understanding editing really helps me. Again, like I read Sudhir Mishra once said, I think he tweeted that all screenplay writers should go and spend 1 year in the edit room. And I think this is very important when I read a lot of screenplays. You know, a lot of time I ask people, how will you cut it? Because I don't see this will cut when. or it uh, even if I film it, when I start putting these visuals together, it wouldn't make any sense because you skipped this part. So how are you going to do this? And so I think it really helps if you understand editing. It doesn't mean that you physically go and edit, but I think like I said, that is the most unique thing about filmmaking. So you need to as a screenplay writer, you need to understand that. It also helps in, I think, again, another example from Scam, like there's this scene where Harshad is trying to sell this idea of money market and how these small banks should come together. He's sitting, I think, in Bank of America and trying to sell it. And then he tells someone कि अरे आपने वो एक चिड़िया अनेक चिड़िया वाला चीज नहीं सुना है ऐसे क्या कह रहे हो रोज तो आता है दूरदर्शन पर एक चिड़िया अनेक चिड़िया एंड देन ही सेज दैट so now he said कि अच्छा this is very interesting reference from 90s,
Yeah.
because I don't know how old you are, but 90s
I'm
में
I'm I'm 29.
yeah. So I
Okay.
don't know whether you have any memory of seeing this एक चिड़िया अनेक चिड़िया.
नहीं,
I
not
doubt,
so much.
because I
Not so
think
much. Yeah.
so because there's only one channel, so they used to have this NFDC का small animation films about एक secularism and एकता and so there's this एक चिड़िया अनेक चिड़िया, so everyone from 80s and 90s knows about that video. But now the challenge is how do I tell the younger audience that what he is talking is not some random thing. He is not quoting some poet. So what happens if you go back and see that scene, and that is how it is written also. He says this thing, and then the music picks up from the same Ek Chidiya Anek Chidiya. And it cuts to a TV where his kids are watching the same that animation film on TV. And then and Harshad and the family is very happy having this, dinner in the background. And so that has been written like that. It has been written like that, that he says it, the music picks up, and then you see this visual. So it's very clear that he's not quoting something random. He's quoting it from somewhere, something he has seen. Uh, so I think that is where, then the editing starts helping. Or the climax, the 10th episode climax, which seems, to a lot of people that it can be created on edit. It is like we could have changed the rhythm of it and smoothen it little, but it has been written like that. That the voice from the earlier interview comes back, and it cuts to his house where somebody is calling his brother. So it has been written like that. It's because that helps, that it's very clear on the shoot how much we need to shoot. So I think that basic structuring, I think, really helps. And for me, that comes from, like I said, for me, it comes from understanding editing. Now, for someone else, some writers can do that without understanding the edit also, or without physically editing it. But I think because I think because in the edit also, a lot of time it's like rewriting, right? You are rewriting in a way, you're looking at actors' performances and do I need this dialogue and can I create a transition? Lot- So it's always helpful, and you know to understand film editing if
Yeah.
if you are a writer.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of writing, do you have like a specific writing regime that you like to follow कि नहीं मैं सुबह उठ के लिखूंगा या or are you a night owl, you like to write when
No.
everyone's sleeping?
So no. So I am also like, therefore I find myself like, I don't know whether, like I keep telling people, I don't know if I'm a fan of a writer's room where you know people suppose reach at 10 o'clock and then they're going to write till 5, because I don't know how that happens. So a lot of writers do that. They will wake up every day, they will write, and they will write 5 pages, whether good or bad. They will write it, and that works for them. You know, uh, I if so for me, it's if I'm writing with someone, it's lot of time it's just talking about the script, the story, and I think it's like probably we will talk about the real thing for an hour, and for probably 5 hours we will be talking something else. Uh, but I think that is the process for me, that I when I sit and write, it has to be very clear in my head that what I'm writing, I should have already visualized it. So now I can write like, so this process would be much longer for me. The writing, like a physical writing, like if I'm very clear, I might even write 40 pages a day and say, okay, the episode is done. But I should be able to visualize it, and I should be very clear. Like I think visually. So like I said, I come from finance background. I sketch a lot. So so I am I need to see that scene in my head. Okay, ये ऐसे कुछ खड़े होंगे. I don't know how how to explain it, but you're seeing that scene in your head, and then you are writing it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So that is the process. I am not someone who would say, कि अच्छा, I will go on a hill station for 2 days and write. So I'm not saying whether that's a right process or wrong process. I can write from my living room, and I can write from my bedroom, and I can write from office. So I cannot write from coffee shop, which lot of people can. Uh, but I think I think Hansal even asked, "Do you need a writer's room?" So I said, "It's just Saurav and me." And like I know if I'm writing with Saurav, he will come in evening. We might be writing till early morning. So a lot of time the script will go to Hansal early morning. He wakes up early, so he would read it in the morning. So I'm very flexible with this process, and also therefore I'm into filmmaking. I'm not into I need to enjoy it. So lot of time, like I also get distracted very easily. And I'm reading something, and then it's like a rabbit hole, and then you do researching and you go somewhere, and but that is the process for me. Like I will get into it. Like I said, I like to talk about filmmaking. I like to discuss about craft. So a lot of times the discussions will go somewhere else, and you start googling, it will go somewhere else. So so there is no, I think there is no process. And like people say, when are you writing? I'm writing 24/7, because you're always thinking about it. When you're writing such a script, you're always thinking about it. So you're right, like in a way, as a writer, you're writing 24/7, but the physical writing probably, I think that is also the boring part, when you're just typing. So I am not somebody who's wakes up every day and say I will write 5 pages a day. Also, the deadline really helps if there's a deadline. So I tell people that, okay, give me a deadline. Otherwise it doesn't work. I think with the writers, it doesn't. They are never going to deliver, because I think most writers I know are like that.
Okay, all right. Uh, in one of your interviews, I was reading that you mentioned the importance of agents for writers. So,
Yeah.
can you explain the job of an agent and also elaborate on why this person is important, especially for a writer? What is it that, can you just please explain the role of an agent?
So agent would be like, I think for me, I'm not a very good negotiator. I'm not good with discussing or negotiating money part. Okay, so one is that for when I started working, so I am represented by Tulsi. Uh, okay, so when they started representing me, I realized that, oh, I am really undervaluing myself. There is, there's money in writing, and people are ready to pay that. A lot of time I've told them that I do not want to do this project, quote whatever you want, and people have come back and they said, okay, can we, मतलब we'll do it, थोड़ा सा negotiate कर लेते हैं. Uh, so one is that I think lot of creative people, they undervalue themselves, uh, and they are not good negotiators. Uh, so one, that for that it's very important. Also now the contracts are very strict. You have corporates, you have international streaming platforms. So how does IP works? How does these rights work? Is there a royalty? Uh, so I think as a writer, I do not want to waste my time understanding those contracts, because some of these contracts are, like I joke sometimes that they are bigger than the script itself. So so I do not want to do all that. Uh, Also, what happens is now the studios sometimes they reach out to these agents and say, okay, we have an idea, and you know, do you have a writer who would be interested in this? So they can set up a lot of these meetings for you. And now I think internationally people are looking at India. So it also helps you getting these international collaborations. I think that is why I think it's very important that you have some kind of a representation, unless you are yourself very good with that, and you want to spend that energy. Uh, it's just about getting a fair deal, uh, and I think we have like I think yeah, also credits. So like I think credits are very important. So other thing happens like, a lot of time writers out of passion they start writing something, and so now I've learned that unless a producer or studio has some kind of stake in it, like they've spent some kind of money in it, that project is not happening. Nobody's taking it seriously because I need to see that you know the producer or the studio is serious about it and they're ready to put some kind of money into development. So and like a project like Scam would require research, right? It would require writers to travel, meet people, and you're spending your money. So therefore, now people spend money on development. Uh, so unless you are writing for like for yourself, if you're writing for someone else, I think that there has to be a contract, and that is where your agent really helps. And actors have agents now, so why not writers? Like actors,
Yeah, yeah,
they have managers and they have agents.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. What do you look for when you come across a story? What is that one feeling or that emotional state that you expect to get sucked in after watching a film, a series, a documentary? Basically, what do you wish to feel when you experience a story?
I think the surprise. I don't know whether there's any other. I think the story has to surprise you. That it has to. The feeling has to be this you that you were not expecting that, and it delivers that kind of a emotion to you. I think that is what you are looking at. And like I said, uh, I think for me it has to be through the craft. So it's not like I'm looking for the craft. Like you are not looking at saying edit kaisa tha or you cut kaisa tha. I'm not talking, but uh, like the craft can be invisible, but uh, the visuals are great, and so sometimes there need not be a story because a visual can convey a emotion. So when you look at a painting at times, it doesn't have a story, but it's still conveying something to you, and that is the power of the visual. So I'm saying uh, probably you're looking for some kind of a surprise that can this film. You don't go and like, you have certain kind of expectation because you've seen a trailer and you know about a film, and but then if it able to surprise you, uh, you know, I think that would be the feeling because other feelings are byproduct of that.
Okay,
For me, I have not seen something like this before.
okay.
I was not expecting this. Uh,
Can you give a few examples of the same where you felt that I never expected this to happen or I've never seen something like this?
so I will actually go very like really back and give an example.
Sure, sure.
How I got interested into filmmaking.
Yes.
So one film would be Sholay, which is like as young boy I've seen a lot of films in theater and on TV, but like Sholay is one of the films which I remember, right? And why do I remember is when that scene happened. Now, so it has everyone knows कि अच्छा Thakur doesn't have hands. That like that's a part of a pop culture. But when I
Right.
first time saw that film and that scene happens where they do not pick the gun and give it to him and say, "अरे आप क्यों नहीं दिया आपने हमारा help क्यों नहीं किया?" And then it goes into flashback and like I'm asking my dad, क्यों नहीं दिया?" And that then that scene happens and there's a great transition, where his stall flies and you realize he doesn't have hands. That as a young boy, that is the magic of cinema because I don't think that can happen in a book or it happens there and you say, okay, this I was not expecting this. So I'm saying that's a surprise, right? And then you can feel joy and horror or whatever. But I think the initial thing is that this surprise or in a film like Sixth Sense. Now. when I saw Sixth Sense, uh, the spoiler was already out, right? I knew that okay, Will Smith, sorry, not Bruce Willis is ghost in it, right? This
Right.
I knew this. Now, when I'm
Sorry,
watching
guys,
this
if any
film,
one of you has not
yeah,
seen it, sorry, we just
I
spoiled
said
it for you. But
spoiler, yes, yeah.
yeah,
So, when I'm watching it, I said, isn't he supposed to be this ghost? How is this happening?
right,
Right. So now I'm questioning कि जिसने मुझे बताया गलत तो नहीं बताया. So now you know the spoiler, but still works for you.
right.
कि, oh, this is how he did it, you know. And it could be as simple as like when I'm talking about this surprise. Also, it's when I saw first films of like I did film appreciation course. So now the films are very easily that you can go watch films anywhere, right? International cinema. But we
Hmm.
grew up on mainstream Bollywood and some of the Hollywood films.
Absolutely.
Uh, so now my and then when I was in college, I started seeing some international films, but my real exposure was doing this film appreciation course in FTIA, which is highly recommended. Now, like if anybody wants to do it, it's a 1 month course. So when I first time saw Iranian cinema, which is I think which is Where is Friend's Home and Close Up, both are by Kuristami.
Yeah,
I said, yeah, the films could be this simple, and the landscape of Iran, especially if you've seen Where is Friend's Home, that landscape is so similar to Uttarakhand, where I come from. It could be any village in Uttarakhand. I said, the costumes, the landscape, the story that वो दो गांव के बीच में एक स्कूल है and उसका homework, it you can immediately connect to it. So now the surprise is, oh, the story could be this simple. So I'm saying when I'm talking about surprise, you are not expecting that. You are not
right.
expecting that you would feel something like this watching this film. Or when I saw Close Up, I couldn't understand, is this a real film? I don't know whether you have seen Close Up or not. Kiarostami's
I
film.
have watched it, but I vaguely remember it because थोड़ा
So
time हो गया देखो है. Yeah.
it's basically the part of it is a documentary.
Yes.
And
Yes.
what he has done is he has used the same people to recreate these scenes from the
Yes.
past.
Yes.
So now how do you even describe this film? So that really got me interested in uh, that the format itself can be the story, and that is when I made my first short film, which is on YouTube.
Yeah.
That was kind of influenced by Close Up. Something the surprise could be anything like or recently I think last week only I saw Avesham. And I'm saying you're going with certain kind of expectation and you're still surprised. Oh, there's hardly any plot in this film, but I'm still enjoying it. And, I was not expecting this. So I'm saying it could be, the surprise could be in multiple ways, or even Manjumal Boys. See, I was thinking, I knew about the film, how would I feel if I didn't?
Yeah.
Because then, if I saw that first half and then again the spoiler, whatever happens in second half, that would, that would hit me in a completely different way.
Yeah.
So
Thank you
not
for
only
not
do that,
spoiling it because I still haven't watched Manjumal Boys. So
so
yes,
I'm
but
saying if
I
you haven't, but if anyone, do not read about it, do not see the
yeah,
trailer,
yeah,
just go watch it. So, so I'm saying you are looking for that. I think you do not go plan it, but if a film can do that, film can make you feel something you were not expecting. I think that works for me. It could apply to multiple films. It could apply to Tree of Life, or I'm a big David Lynch fan. You do not even know what you're feeling while watching a Lynch film, or a film like Michael Haneke's Hidden, which is I think in French it's Caché or something. Uh,
okay, okay,
it's not a horror film, but I that film remained with me for so long because it haunted me in a completely different way. So I'm saying you are looking that for for that kind of a feeling.
absolutely. I watched Avesham just yesterday, and I I absolutely agree that yes, I knew that okay, Fahad Fazil has become this, trying to
Yeah,
enter a commercial zone and everything, but
yeah,
that's exactly what I felt, that wait, the story is just a one-liner. it's a one
yeah,
line story, and how you have managed to
yeah.
expand it for, a duration of 2 hours 40 minutes and make it that engaging.
Therefore,
Some
keep coming back to that. Uh, as a screenplay writer, you shouldn't say that, but stories, in the end, the great story wouldn't make a great film. It's not as simple as that. Uh, if it was, because then most of the films, they work on paper, right? And therefore
right.
somebody decides to make them. But then on screen they do not. So and sometimes you say there is hardly any story in it, but still works. I do not. I would love to read Avishram's screenplay because I don't know what what they were even writing, and you know what was the pitch.
Yes, absolutely. Since you spoke about the feeling of getting surprised and thinking that, wait, I never expected this going to happen. So I would love to give you a small recommendation. So
Yeah,
there is this classic series in the world of sci-fi and like the like the entire sci-fi thriller and uh, the entire thriller genre. It's called the Twilight Zone,
I've seen it.
which is, you've seen it,
Yeah,
the
I'm a
entire
big fan of
series.
Twilight. No, I've not seen. I think there. I don't know how many episodes are there,
So,
but I've
so
seen a lot of them because yeah,
there are 4 seasons and 33
yeah,
episodes each.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
But I'm a big fan of that series. I don't know. There's something else also which is called Alfred Hitchcock Presents. I don't know whether you've seen
yes,
Alfred Hitchcock
yes,
Presents, which again a
yes,
similar. So if you watch between Alfred Hitchcock Presents and Twilight Zone, I think whatever Black Mirror tries to do, whatever we try to do, sometimes feel अच्छा यार ये लोगों ने अभी सब कर लिया है,
exactly.
between these two series. So I'm a big sci-fi fan, so yeah, I've seen Twilight Zone. I've seen. I think there was
Yeah.
a new one also, no, with Jordan Peele, I think he was presenting it, which was a
Yes,
remake of the old one. I've seen
yes, yes, but
I think three episodes from that.
Yeah, my favorite episode of all time from the Twilight Zone is Time Enough to Last. It's a story about the guy who likes to read. He's a
Uh,
voracious reader and he's a
uh,
cashier at a bank.
uh,
And he loves to read to that extent कि अगर आपके टी शर्ट पे कुछ लिखा है तो वो उसको भी पढ़ेगा.
uh,
And he's a cashier at a bank.
uh.
Uh, and then should I just tell it to you, or
No,
I mean,
I'll watch it. I'll watch it. I'll watch it.
yeah,
Yeah,
I can send you, the file that
yeah,
I have.
yeah,
I'll share
yeah,
it with you.
yeah,
Uh, I can confidently say that this is the most, like, literally mind-blowing story that I've ever come
yeah,
across, because it just goes on thinking that, oh yeah, sure, and okay, I know what's going to happen, but that's
yeah,
exactly when
yeah, yeah,
something which you did not expect happens.
right,
And
right,
I am personally a fan of these kind of endings,
yeah,
which actually don't make you sleep at night.
yeah,
Those films just stay with you for so long
yeah,
that you feel that, an intense connection. From the initial days of writing shows like Inside Edge in the Indian streaming space, to say, and then you did Scam 1992, which became a huge sensation. How has the landscape and you both evolved with the medium?
I think, like I said, I think we are still trying to, learn this long form writing. Uh, so, also, what happened when Inside Edge was happening, we thought, okay, we are free of censorship now, right? We can do a lot of things which we were not able to do in cinema, and you will see that in Inside Edge.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
out there. It's uh, so you are very excited of doing, like, अच्छा freedom मिल गया तो कुछ भी कर लो, and that is what also works for Inside Edge. People haven't seen something like that. But with Scam, I think we said, okay, ठीक है. I think the series doesn't allow, like, the series doesn't need all this, and we can pull back and we can just concentrate on telling this story. And so a lot of people have tried to do Harshad Mehta's story in past, uh, but I think it required a longer format. Yes. So I think the format allowed us to tell it that way, and we also, like, I think there was a certain kind of freedom, like, working with Applause and Hansel and so Sony Live, because it also is a series which takes a lot of real names, and it refers to real incidents, which are in a way contemporary to our generation. It's
Hmm.
not like you are not telling a story set in 60s, or
Right.
you're telling a story set in 90s, and which ends in 2000. So this is the world a lot of people have lived in. uh, I think a lot of Indian content was not doing that. Like so again, Inside Edge does that, but Inside Edge completely, it's almost like a hyper real version of that.
Right.
It almost like it takes real incident and then completely dramatize them. Although again, the research in it, if you see how the betting happens and all that, that's very well researched. The cricket matches are very well researched. But rest of the world is little hyper real. It's almost like a comic book. It has a comic book kind of a villain. So things are exaggerated. But Scam, we could pull that back because it was a real story, and we know what kind of stories Hansel like to explore and what is his approach towards filmmaking. So even if we will write it little stylishly, we know that he will pull it back, and he will present it with certain way. So I think. What is happening now is one, I think, a, s- a kind of censorship has come, you know and there's a lot of self censorship also now. So I don't know, I think all of us were really excited to tell these kind of stories, and Inside has happened, or a Patal Lok, or Sacred Game, Scam, these kind of, I don't know whether for how long we will be able to tell these stories. Uh, because if you see, the landscape is changing, and everyone can see that landscape is changing, and everyone thought, oh, this is the writer's medium, we will have all kind of freedoms. uh, but that is not happening. It has become a very data driven. So one thing, we thought that we will be free of box office now. Nobody's going to judge uh, you know on Friday what numbers are. But now you look at it, it's how many views on day one, how many views on day two, what were your views for first 1 month. And I thought the whole idea was of streaming was that uh, I can see it whenever I want, and it's always going to be there. And I can discover things at my pace. Like that is how we have discovered our Alpha Discog presence and Twilight Zone, because started streaming somewhere, right?
Right.
Uh, but now again, we are thinking short term. We are thinking quick. We are being told audience do not have patience. They we are being told our competitions are reels. So, uh, but we are also forgetting Instagram is free, YouTube is free. So I don't know why is that even a competition. Uh,
Right.
when we are told that audience do not have patience, I go back and look at some of our biggest blockbusters, and they are all 3 hour plus. So again, like, as an editor and as a writer, I keep telling people, you need to understand duration has nothing to do with pace. I can make something 5 minutes and people will not watch if they do not connect to it. And I can watch, I can make something 3.5 hours and people will watch it. And again, a great example of that would be uh, Last of Us from last year,
Yeah.
which is one of the most successful shows. It's one of the most watched show from. So I'm not even talking about critically acclaimed and all that. I'm talking about one of the most watched show. I think its first episode is more than 90 minutes, episode one, and it is because it was supposed to be 2 episodes, and HBO said we want to see more. We want to tell, we want to show this world to audience little more. So I don't know, I don't even know how this data works and how then you use that data and start writing it. So how the landscape has really changed. You are being given this data. Like earlier there used to be एक song डाल दीजिए ना, एक item number डाल दीजिए, ये actor को cast कर लीजिए. So it has come now in long form also, which is a little scary, and it is also scary because uh, I do not know how to write another Scam. Like I wouldn't know. As a writer myself, it's not like I did this, and therefore it worked. Yeah. There is no formula to it. I wish there was, uh, but I don't know. But there would be executives who would tell you why scam worked and you should do this, and it will happen. So, which is very surprising. So I think that has completely. I think that landscape has completely changed. People are a little scared to do experiment. In a way, scam was experiment. Or forget scam. I think if you look at all the successful shows from India, they were all experiments. People had never seen something like, even something like Mirzapur. You have never seen that kind of violence. You have never seen something like this. And then there would be 10 replicas of Mirzapur, and they wouldn't work
Right.
because that you. So the other problem with data, I keep telling these people, is that if you're telling me that in 10 minutes this has to happen and the data says in next 5 minutes this has to happen, then even audience is trained to, they are expecting that in 10 minutes this would happen. How I as a writer or a filmmaker can surprise that that doesn't happen. You know Again, a good example of it would be Game of Thrones season 1. If you have not read the book, if your lead actor dies, I was not expecting that. I do not even know where your season 2 will take me. You made me fall in love with this character. He was supposed to be the main guy. Now you've killed him.
Right.
A data would tell you this cannot be done. A data would tell you one of my favorite episodes from Last of Us is episode 3.
Okay.
You've seen Last of Us?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
You've seen Last of Us. So there's no spoiler in it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I've also played the game. So I know how. So I played
Okay.
the game. I know what these characters do in the game.
Right.
So a data would tell you that do not do this because there's certain fan following of the game. How can you even tell this? Leave your main characters. There's this character who's certain way in the game. You're changing it. You're leaving your main character. You're telling a story which is almost like a short story, which has nothing to do with the rest of the plot. A data would tell you this is not going to work, but it works because nobody is expecting that. So I think what mainly two things has happened. There's a lot of self censorship. People are worried what we can say on screen, what we cannot say on screen, and we are looking for our goals have become very short term. कि पहले दिन का व्यू क्या होगा, किसको कास्ट करने से क्या होगा. It has basically become how your mainstream commercial films used to be, and we are not looking at that some of those films are not working, which is what we call formula, right? This is the formula, you use it, and that is not why some of the a lot of these Telugu Tamil films have worked, because they've at least taken audience to worlds they have never seen. So there is a certain kind of a surprise in it, even though their beats might be uh, what a commercial cinema demands. The world, the characters are new to audience. So I think uh, that is where the landscape is changing, and that is a little scary because a lot of stories we thought we would be able to tell, I think that is becoming little difficult.
Yeah. Even the choice of color is limited.
Yeah.
I- As in, like you must have seen what has happened with Monkey Man. So yeah.
Yeah,
Like there was
I know.
specific,
So yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So
specific
that is what I'm
portions of the
saying. And
film.
with that, what happens with that is lot of self censorship comes. That I shouldn't even pitch this story because nobody will make it. So I think that I don't know how many like, we might go back in time and start banning a lot of things which are already there. So I think that is the worry that. And I understand there people have to do their business, and it's not like I'm making something independently. So I think that is scary, but that is also the reality right now.
True. That's true. All right, we are at the end of our conversation,
Right.
and just a few questions before we close. Uh, so you also have a great experience when it comes to editing trailers,
Right.
and I would love to ask you that right now, this is something that I have observed as an audience, and I would love to know your thoughts on the same. That there is a common emotion of how the audience sometimes feels tired of, watching trailers that just reveal everything.
Yeah,
And now it's not just one trailer. There are probably
yeah,
three trailers now releasing, coming soon, tickets in cinemas, whatever. So there are different
yeah,
promotional materials that get released.
yeah, yeah,
And sometimes what happens is you end up going and watching something in the theater, and all you do is just compile all the
yeah,
trailers in your head कि
yeah,
अच्छा ये तो
yeah,
उसमें देखा था, ये तो उसमें देखा था.
yeah.
So I want to ask you, do you think is this actually happening? And if yes, then in your opinion, why is this happening?
So I think it's not something which is happening right now. You can go back and look at some of the older trailers, and uh, they will tell you whole story. But but also, like, I again, if you go back and look at the trailer, I don't know what it's called, Planet of Apes, or what is it called, the first one in the new
Hmm.
series.
Okay.
It's called Rise of Planet of Apes, or
Yes, Rise of the
the
Planet of
first one.
Apes. Yes, yes.
If you look at the trailer, it will tell you the whole story. And I said, अरे यार ये तो इस फिल्म में मतलब there's nothing now अभी देखने के लिए. But that film actually surprised me. Uh, so I don't know, like with Srikanth also, I feel अच्छा यार इसमें तो काफी दिखा दिया फिल्म के बारे में. But with that, I do not know whether I am the right person to judge that trailer, because I'm being told that the trailer has done really well. So I also, somebody, like, even though I cut trailer, I do not understand marketing, that every film would require a different kind of a marketing strategy. Uh, but what you can do is, like, therefore it's also very difficult to find a lot of trailer editors, like, when, like, I stopped doing it, because a lot of people told me, acha karte raho, because you're writing, but why don't you get a editor and you can oversee it. But what I realized was that it's not like cutting a film. It's not like you have a script. I cannot have an assistant and tell him, you do a cut, and then I will come. At least for me, because I was not a studio, I was doing it independently. Because sometimes, like, you have to find a new story in the trailer. You have to find these two visuals, and connect them, like what happens in a film, but here also, that you can create a different meaning, a different emotion, uh, sometimes.
Yeah,
So I think, so it's a different kind of a art, cutting trailer. Like the Monkey Man trailer is really really great, but I think both their
yeah,
trailers are very, very good. So in a way, like, now again, I think as Indians we kind of know what the story is. I don't know how the West would react to it, because I now can connect the pieces. So it also, for I think marketing is a different skill. Lot kind, like again, like, scam, like, I thought, why are we doing, like, why is that last line in the trailer where he's saying ki lighter them. I said, this is not what the series is about, but that is what became viral. So I'm saying that it's like the cutting also, because now I'm too close to it. I am not somebody, it's not I am cutting that trailer, somebody else is cutting, they are looking. So usually when I am cutting the trailer, I tell filmmakers that this is not for you know so even if you think that I am telling a lot of things, or this is not what I was trying to do, that is not the purpose. It's for someone, it's basically to bring people in theater or get them interested. It's
yeah,
not, trailer is not for someone who knows the film. Uh, so so I, I i i would like to, like, when I'm cutting a trailer, I would like to, find a narrative in it. And it's I do not so I think a lot of times trailer try to be little dishonest also. I think that is very important, that it's important that you are honest towards the film.
hmm,
Do not sell me something which film is not about. Like, if film, like, there's a serious film with five funny scenes, do not sell it as a comedy.
right.
So a good example would be when I was cutting Aankhon Dekhi. I had seen some of the versions of trailers of Aankhon Dekhi where it was being cut like a comedy film, because you can cut it like a comedy film, but that was not what the film was about. it,
Absolutely.
it had funny moments, and but that is not what the film is about. So I think, and therefore I think Rajat liked my version because it kept those funny moments, but it also, it didn't reveal a lot, but it told you what the film about, little bit about the world. Also, what I do not like is a lot of Indian teasers, because what they do is
Yeah.
they are usually the shorter version of the trailer, but that is not what the teaser is supposed to be. Teaser is supposed to be an actual teaser. Like,
Right.
uh, I think the great teaser was,
Yeah.
what was it? Vidya Balan's film where it's which is about that South Indian B movie star. With Vidya Balan playing that
South
lead
Indian
role.
B movie star. Okay. Dirty
It has
Picture.
Nasir Saab, Dirty Picture. So Dirty Picture has this, I think, great
Dirty
teaser, if
Picture.
I
Yeah.
remember correctly. It has this great teaser of this Vidya turning and her sari ka pallu flying, and it says coming soon or something. So I think that is a teaser for me. This one visual could be a teaser rather than just shortening the whole trailer. So
Right.
just give me one visual. I think Mangal Pandey had a great teaser. I don't know whether you've seen that teaser. It's
Yeah. He's just. I think he's just
he's
walking
just
towards the
walking. He's just
camera, and
walking, and
yeah.
there's a yeah, and there's great that Mangal music in the background. So I think that's a great teaser. On Lagan, I think Lagan trailer is good because how it hides everything and keeps the surprise.
Right. In fact, if you even since you were talking about Avesham only had one teaser,
Yeah,
and after that they revealed just a couple of
yeah.
promotional videos, but they also were very non-revealing of what is actually
Yeah.
happening in the film.
I don't
So,
know
yeah.
if you can reveal anything about that film. The film,
That's true.
film
That's
is a
true.
just film is like a longer trailer. Because
Yeah, but
it's,
what happened with the teaser is it felt like those guys, the three boys, they
yeah,
were actually
yeah,
having some beef with Fahad's character, which
yeah,
is not the case, which is like they're
yeah,
actually teaming up.
yeah,
So it created that hype, but and I think it deceived the audience in a
yeah,
good manner.
yeah. So like a lot of people have these problem with I think Marvel trailers where they remove things and add things, but I am okay with that. That is, why would I spoil my film? You
Right,
know, because if you're talking about cheating, when I'm cutting two visuals and putting them together, you're cheating. In trailer, you are always cheating. So if I want to remove few things, you know, uh, with the use of VFX, and I do not want to reveal few things and change costumes, and I'm okay with that. I'm not
right,
somebody who's against. I say cheating. Trailer is it's supposed to cheat you.
right, right. My very last two questions of this conversation, and I'm going to compile both of them. Uh, what is the biggest advice for someone who's wanting to pursue a career as a screenwriter, and what are some of your film recommendations that you feel can teach a lot about screenwriting specifically?
So I think, like I said, if you want to be a serious screenplay writer, it's very important that you understand what is the format of screen, like how a screenplay is actually written. It's not like a book. It's not a short story. So go learn. I think there are a lot of free softwares now, a lot of videos about how screenplay is formatted, how it is written. Because if you're going to submit a screenplay, at least how I am going to judge you is, do you know how to write a screenplay? I'm not looking for a story. That secondary. You know, you might have a great story, but if you write it like a story and I cannot visualize it as a film, it's not a screenplay.
Hmm.
So it's very important that you spend some time understanding how a screenplay is actually written
Hmm.
and learn how to format it.
Right.
You know, and sometimes it's like we keep saying it and keep like it's show don't tell, but when you start writing it, you there are things where you will get stuck. It's not just about what actor is feeling, and when was what information given. you know, what is happening in the next scene, and uh, so it gets tricky. So you can write a lot of things, but they will make no sense on screenplay.
Right.
It's how do you pass that information on screenplay? How do you introduce a character, you know, when it has to be done? So I think I'm not getting into how the good the story is. I'm just talking about the craft right now. I think just work on your
Yeah.
craft. Uh, like if you are an editor or a cinematographer, you work on your craft. As a screenwriter, work on your craft. Read a lot of screenplays. If you can, read a lot of screenplays. And now there is something called international, like there is IMDb. There is something called International Movie Screenplay Database. So it has a lot of screenplays.
Okay.
But in that also, I have realized a lot of times what people have done. People have seen the film and written the screenplay, like, because it's a user, generated content. So look
Okay.
for real screenplays and find. So you will find these screenplays. So read a lot of screenplays. Understand, okay, it was written in certain way. How the filmmaker has visualized it. Then so do that lot. Watch a lot of films. If you want to go do a screenplay course, like I think FTI has a screenplay course. Uh, so I think those would be my advice. I think just understand how to build this blueprint. Uh, you might be a great storyteller, but you might not be able to write the screenplay. So therefore, a book needs to be adapted. You cannot take a
Yeah.
book and or a short story and uh, turn it to a screenplay. Try adapting things. you know Take a short story and say, okay, how do I adapt it into a screenplay? Take a story which has already been adapted, try to adapt it. There are so many versions of Macbeth. How would you do it? How? So I'm saying do if and write. I think at the end of the day you will have to write. Uh,
Yeah.
Whether you write pages a day or you think about it and write it in one day, but write, because that is actually one of the most boring parts. Just writing. It's also one of the most lonely things to write. Collaborate with someone. I don't know whether lot of people have assistant writers. I do not know. I can have assistant writer. Either you are a collaborator or I don't know what assistant writer is. But if you can collaborate with someone, collaborate with someone. So yeah. What was your second question?
Some of the
Oh,
films
some
that you
other
feel, yeah,
for screenplay writing.
yeah, purely from the perspective of how well they have been written.
I think all Charlie Kaufman films, from adaptation to being John Malkovich, everything. I think adaptation would be great anyways, like, because I think it's about screenplay writers. Uh, but also, like, I think watch Twin Peaks. Like this is my recommendation. I recommend it to everyone because I do not know how Lynch does that, because a lot of these, like, it's a murder mystery, but this it has this weird humor, uh, like really weird scenes. I don't know how do they even write on paper, and you know how's everyone convinced that this would work on screen, because it almost feels like slapstick, but he's somehow making it work. So I think that also, if you want to understand long form writing, at least season one, like, I think, what else? I think again Iran. Like, I can only recommend things I like. Watch Sholay, like, if you haven't. I think it's one of the greatest. How do you write a screenplay? How do you create these characters, and it's you take references from everywhere and then you adapt it into something completely different. Uh, so I think therefore I think Salimji and Javed Sir were so great, because with the kind of screenplays they could write, and I think I think they were also the writers who were actually writing these screenplays. पहले तो थोड़ा story की तरह होता था, ऐसे होता था, but they really brought this format and they used to narrate it, and I think so. I think watch their films if you haven't, because I think a lot of times we do not go watch our films a lot. uh, and sometimes also do not watch it out of context. Lord, अरे ये तो मैंने देखा हुआ है, but imagine it was happening when it was happening. Anyway, I think Sholay, though, I think it has not even aged, because I do not know how they, lot of the action sequences. I've never seen a better train, that robbery that gunfight. practically shot. So I think just watch it, and also with this kind of screenplay tricks they use. I think Sholay is a great example of that. If you want to, like I'm saying, if you want to see how things can be adapted, go watch Throne of Blood, and then go watch Macbeth. Sorry, go watch Throne of Blood, the new Macbeth, and Makbul.
Right.
I think a new one. So I think there's a Coin Brother one, and there
Yes.
was, I
Yes.
think, Michael Fassbender one. But if you want to see how you can just watch Makbul and Throne of Blood and see how you can adapt things. So I think there are multiple recommendations. But, but these, like, if you want to do it as an exercise, then you know these would be some of my recommendations.